Today's video is sponsored by KEH Camera. If you're going to be traveling anytime soon, you're going to be faced with one of the toughest decisions a photographer has to make in their lifetime, and that's what camera do you pack? And if you're a typical film photographer, it's more like which cameras do you pack? How many should you pack? When you're packing your camera bag for a trip, especially if your job isn't to go and make photos on that trip, you just happen to be traveling, but you obviously want to bring your cameras with you, it's really easy to go overboard and just pack everything you have. But I think for most cases, you kind of get in your own way by doing that. KEH Camera has some great articles on their blog on, travel photography in general and choosing the right lenses when you're traveling. And I kind of wanted to piggyback off of those ideas, but add to it sort of from my own perspective and experience when it comes to traveling. I'm going to give you some practical tips on traveling, especially if you're a film photographer. I'll share what my ideal travel kit really looks like, and then also plenty of alternatives as well directly from KEH's site. So if you're interested in any of the items that I personally mention or any other alternatives that I've found, you can definitely find all of the links down below, and there are going to be a lot of them. And also while you're there, be sure to use my codes at checkout. That way you can save yourself some extra money. Use that extra money towards travel. Tip number one, keep it low friction. As a film photographer and all of the options that we have at our disposal, it's really easy to find something you want to photograph and immediately start going down the rabbit hole of all of the different options there are. Do I shoot this in color or black and white? Which film stock is going to best suit this particular light or subject? Do I want to go like medium format, color negative to get that extra bump in resolution and image quality? Or do I throw black and white 35mm film in there that has that sort of classic and romantic look to it? Maybe I go all out and take the time to shoot it on large format, or I could also take a Polaroid camera and shoot just, a one-of-one piece of artwork and just throw it in my pocket and keep going. You see what I'm getting at here. It's so easy to run all of these possibilities and outcomes in your head to the point that you start to overwhelm yourself and you're second guessing what choices you make, when in reality, if you just had one camera and one lens and you were ready to shoot, you're more likely to make the photo. I've found that for me, the less options I have, the more I'm actually shooting, and in result, the more I'm actually seeing, because I'm much more focused on what's around me. I'm way less focused on what camera I should use, what lens I should bring, or film stock, all of that stuff. The camera that I choose to take with me everywhere I go needs to be something I'm comfortable with, to where I don't even have to think about it, just keep it low friction. Tip number two, pack light, and then pack lighter than that. Telling a photographer to pack light for a trip is sort of like telling my son that he has 5 more minutes to play Nintendo Switch. They're going to stretch that 5 minutes as much as they possibly can. You tell yourself you're only going to pack one camera bag, and then you go and find the biggest camera bag you possibly can so that you can carry more stuff with you. I've packed way more than I've ever needed on trips in the past, and every time I've done that, I've kicked myself for it. I remember one year in particular, there was one camera bag, a backpack style camera bag, and in that bag, I packed a Crown Graphic 4x5 camera, an RB67, a Nikon FM2, a Polaroid SX70, and I think I squeezed a Polaroid 180 in there as well. Yeah, it was definitely too much, like way too much. I think I ended up using my RB67 and maybe the SX70, and I think that was it. Not to mention the weight of everything there. Second guessing your options and weighing out your options, that's one thing, but just the weight of all of that stuff. I was miserable while we were hiking, and I had all of that stuff in my backpack. It was a dumb choice. Not only that, but the theft risk as well. If you're traveling in a place that you're unfamiliar with and you don't know whether or not it's sort of a safe place to have that much equipment with you or any equipment at all, it's going to sting a lot more losing all of your cameras as opposed to just maybe the essentials that you brought with you. If you haven't noticed, there's a theme here for me when it comes to anything travel related: less is more. Tip number 3, when flying with film, do everything you possibly can to protect that film. We've all heard mixed results on this sort of thing, and it is going to vary depending on where you are in the world, but for me, every time I fly, I always ask for a hand check on all of my film from a TSA agent. That way it doesn't need to be x-rayed. Even though the signs at the airport say any film speed, 800 or lower, it's totally safe to be X-rayed, I don't trust that. I always ask for a hand check every single time, and I do it really easily because I plan accordingly. I take all of my film that I plan on bringing with me and I unwrap all of it so it's not in the plastic box or even the little foil wrapper that like a 120 roll would come in. I take everything out and just put the film in a big gallon Ziploc bag, and I keep that at the front of my luggage. So by the time it comes up to basically put our luggage through the X-ray and take our shoes off and all of that, I can easily just pull all the film out, hand it off to a TSA agent, and by the time I go through the X-ray process, usually my film has already been hand checked and it's waiting for me at the station. Now, some people will say they have X-rayed their film 100 times while traveling and they've never had a single issue. And to those people I say, congratulations, you should probably go buy some lottery tickets. I've personally seen several friends go through airports and have their film X-rayed and have all of their film completely ruined. It only takes one time for something like that to go wrong, and then you lose photos that could be incredibly important to you. If you're going through the process and trouble of shooting this on film, make sure you're protecting that film and take care of it. If you can't ask for a hand check depending on where you are in the world, I have seen people say that the X-ray bags that they make for film, that those work well, but I've also heard other reports from people saying that if a TSA person sees that through the X-ray machine, they're just going to crank the intensity basically of the X-ray machine so that they can make their way through that and basically see what's inside that bag. So I have no idea if that's legitimate or not. If you have any of your own experiences with something like that, let me know in the comments. But for me, hand check anytime I can. That is always the best way to go to keep your film safe. So what would my travel kit look like? I have several options, but if you've been around the channel for really any number of time, this probably isn't going to be surprising for you. I would go with my M6, a 35mm focal length lens. In this case, it's the 35mm Summicron spherical, and just a whole bunch of black and white film. In my case, that's Ilford HP5. This has essentially been sort of my everyday carry go-to setup for almost a decade now. It's incredibly small, simple, and honestly, it's just the system I enjoy using more than any other camera I own or have owned in the past. If I wanted to, I could run this setup without a dedicated camera bag. I could throw one of my straps on here and just stuff some film in my pocket and I'd be good to go. But on other trips, I've also gone as far as just using something like this. I mean, this isn't really a camera bag. It's, a little sling, waist pack, fanny pack style bag from my friends over at Sleepwalk. They're the ones who make my signature camera strap. Huge shout out to them. But basically, all this is just a general use, general purpose kind of bag. But because my system is so small, M6 comfortably fits in there. I could throw tons of film in here. If I really wanted to, I could throw like a 50mm Summicron or other small M-mount lens in here as well, but even that seems like a little bit much for me. I don't want any excess weight or things taking up space. I just want to keep things, again, as low friction as possible. You might feel the need to have more lenses in your bag. You might think that one prime lens isn't enough, or maybe you think you need everything from super wide all the way to telephoto. I mean, I know people pack like a 16-35, a 24-70, a 70-200 because you never know what you're gonna come across. I personally think that if you're used to using a particular focal length, for me that's 35-50, if I'm using anything outside of that, it doesn't really feel like what I would use in my own time. Unless I'm actually on a job and I'm traveling to make photos and deliver those photos, and I kind of need to be more prepared to have a wide range of things depending on what a client may want, that's a totally different thing. But when it comes to actually just traveling and bringing a camera along with you for the just enjoyment of making photos, I think sticking to what you know is your best bet. If I walked around with a 90mm lens or a 135mm lens, I would be looking through a totally different lens, literally, than I'm used to. And I'm not used to seeing compositions with that sort of thing. I feel like if I'm using a lens or a format that I'm not really accustomed to, my go-to is to sort of look for photos that I've seen other photographers make with that particular focal length. For me, that just causes a little bit of a disconnect and it doesn't really feel like it's my work. So I try to stick to what I know and what I'm comfortable with and just what I enjoy shooting the most. Of course, you don't need this kit specifically. This is just what works well for me for traveling. Maybe for you, it's entirely different. You could go with a point and shoot and go really, really minimal and simple, and that's probably an even better option because you don't even have to think about it. auto exposure, autofocus, it's really small and compact. That's a great way to go, but maybe for you, you want that extra resolution and you want medium format, but you want something that's a little more travel friendly than say an RZ67. I'm gonna leave a lot of links in the description down below for KEH. I basically went shopping for you guys and picked out anything that I thought would be a good travel option. Everything from point and shoots to 35 to medium format, Polaroid. There's a lot of different stuff there, as well as just lens choices, camera bags, all sorts of different stuff down there. Of course, huge shout out to KEH Camera for sponsoring this video. They've been an amazing partner here on the channel for quite a while now, and it's always great to work with them, especially just because they have such an incredible inventory for all of us to choose from. They've been buying, selling, and trading photography gear for over 40 years now, and whether you need a camera body, a lens, odds and ends for some of these old film cameras that are a bit harder to track down, their inventory is massive, with thousands of their products coming with a risk-free 21-day return policy and a 180-day warranty included. The way that their technicians grade the condition of each piece of gear gives you quality assurance, and if you're looking to sell or trade your gear, you can do it with their 24/7 online quoting system or schedule a video chat with one of their buyers to give you the best assessment on what your gear can be purchased for. Visit KEH.com and use my codes to get either 5% off your order or a 5% bonus when you sell your gear to KEH. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If it was helpful in any way, give the video a like and subscribe if you're new. And if you have your own ideal travel kit and what that looks like, let me know about it in the comments down below. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Go out and make some pictures. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.